All right. Thank you guys for coming around today. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We started 3 minutes late, but definitely we'll give you guys enough time to ask questions or get enough experience or advice that you need today. All right. So basically, to start off, this is our very last webinar in our college series called Ivy League 101, and this will conclude with today with Maya, who's here with us, who'll be talking about how she got to Princeton University and last year, and what advice she could give us to you guys as high school students right now. All right, so I'm also today I'll be your moderator. My name is Joseph, and I'm very honored to invite Maya today, since I do attend the same high school that Maya went to, so it is a very very unexpected honor. Okay, so let's get started with the second page. So the entire webinar today will last around 1 hour, and the first 5 minutes will be introductions. Since we're kind of on a delay, we're going to try to keep it as concise as we can. The next 40 minutes will be the webinar. The questions I'll be basically asking Maya some questions regarding general like college apps and how her experience was. And the last 15 minutes from 3:45 to 4 p.m. you have the chance to ask Maya if you have any questions regarding the college apps or how's the school, anything like that. And we will talk more about how Q&A will run at 3:45. So basically, Maya, who is here with us today, she is a Hofstra Medical Scholars Pipeline Scholar, LEDA or LEDA cohort 15 scholar, and also a Princeton University admit of class of 2024. All right, and also just to kind of introduce what TC STEM is. TC STEM is basically an abbreviation for Teach Children STEM, and it's a nonprofit STEM program that really just tries to push for free and accessible STEM education for children all around the world, regardless of their social or economic backgrounds. And we just really just want to offer these resources to you guys. And if you have any questions, you can always let us know. All right. So before we get started with our first question, Maya, would you like to introduce yourself or say a few words?
Yes. Hi everyone. My name is Maya. Pronouns she, her, hers. Thank you, Joseph, for inviting me here, and I want to say thank you to all the students who are here. Just you being here shows how motivated you are about the application process. I wish you the best, and I hope that my advice on my experiences can apply to your experiences. And something I just want to get across is that every person is unique. Everyone has something special about them that they need to show in their college application process. And my path to Princeton won't necessarily be your path or to any college. So that's something that you just need to keep in mind. So thank you, everyone.
All right, great. So our first question is, why did you choose to go to Princeton over the many other colleges? There are, there's many other prestigious universities that also do have really good programs and classes. What do you think was the number one thing? Like, why did you choose Princeton? How does it relate to you?
Yeah, to just start off, so some students, they say there's this one college that they always dreamed about going to from elementary school or middle school. I was never that kind of student. And actually during my freshman and sophomore year, I never really thought about what school I wanted to go to. And actually like towards the end of sophomore year, I started receiving like a lot of mail from different colleges. And I got an email from Princeton, and they asked me if I wanted to request material to learn more about Princeton. And so I did, and I received some mail from them about financial aid, academics, extracurriculars. And after looking at all of that, I felt really interested about Princeton. But I wasn't actively like trying to find ways to get into Princeton. I just had it in the back of my mind. And then towards junior year, I actually received an opportunity from my guidance counselor in my high school. He told me about a really great program called LEDA. The long name is Leadership Enterprise for a Diverse America. And basically this program is a summer program that lets you live at Princeton for 7 weeks for free. And they also offer college guidance, and it's a really competitive program to get into. It's a several month process, and I was really excited about the opportunity. I thought this would allow me to learn more about Princeton, and it would help me with the college application process. So I was really wanting to pursue that, and luckily I got in. So I lived at Princeton for 7 weeks. I loved it there. Although I did love it there, I was a little skeptical about living out of state because every student has their own preferences, and that's something that you need to think about as well. So basically for me, I wanted to go to a college that was in close proximity to New York City. And luckily Princeton is very close to New York City. And there are a lot of other things I like about Princeton as well. Some things I feel that stand out about Princeton compared to other Ivy Leagues is that their financially is very generous. Low-income students basically get full financial aid. It's a very small school. It's roughly, undergraduate size is roughly a little bit over 5,000, and it's a very strong undergraduate focus because of that small group of students. They're allowed to pour in their resources to those students and just really help them with their growth through their years at Princeton. Also, they have lots of resources, and I was also considering Princeton with other Ivy Leagues and Macaulay Honors College, but I thought Princeton would be the best choice for me because it is a really, it's a competitive environment, and it gives you access to so many opportunities. It has a really strong alumni network. And if you connect with professors, they can connect you to internships and research. And so that's why I mainly chose Princeton over the other colleges.
All right, that was wonderful. So definitely, you guys can, there's a program called LADA, and you guys could definitely apply to it if you're interested in actually getting the campus experience. Though you probably would have to check the website because of COVID and everything, but that's definitely a resource for you guys. Okay, so the next question is, what were some extracurriculars that you did in high school? So like in volunteering, in school clubs, things like that. And why did you choose them? And what do you think was really special about them that kind of helped you in that application process?
Yeah, definitely. So during my freshman year, I just really wanted to be involved, and I wanted to be involved in similar activities that I did in middle school. So for example, in middle school, I did track, and I was also part of the debate team. So that's what I did in my freshman year. During my freshman year, I was on the track team. I did cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track. And I was also part of the Junior Statesmen of America, which is kind of similar to a debate team. However, I decided to quit track after freshman year because I actually lived really far from my high school and it took over an hour to get there. So I kind of felt that being on track was really like taking up my time in terms of like focusing on my academic work. So that was really a decision I had to make for myself, what I wanted to prioritize. And it really depends on the student as well, whether or not you want to prioritize athletics or academics or a mix of the two. I would say whatever you do, just always consider your own circumstances and don't think that the colleges will scrutinize you for your actions. So for the Princeton application, they actually have a portion where you can actually like talk about, you can fill in like the gaps to help them get a better picture of why you, for example, dropped off an activity or if your grades were lower. So I actually included that in my application that I live really far from school. So I couldn't be in an activity that required such a high engagement. So yeah, aside from track, I also did a lot of volunteering at Common Point Queens. So over there, I did things like donate clothing. I did a lot of food pantry stuff and just a lot of stuff involving food and clothing, and I really enjoyed that. And sophomore year, I joined a club called Global Advocates. And Global Advocates basically does a lot of kind of volunteer work as well to help people within the community. So for example, like we would go to like people's houses and like ask them if we could like rake their leaves or something to like raise money to do other things to help them. We also donated clothes to people whose houses like suffered from fires, and we were the first club to host a walkout at our school during the time in March. I think it was 2017. It was or 2018. I'm not sure what year, but it was for gun control. I thought that was something very special that we did. We also went to Washington, D.C. to protest. So yeah, that's just a little bit about Global Advocates. I was also in a program called Sing for 2 years. I did stuff like dancing, acting, and I really enjoyed it. Just to add on to like more academic stuff. So basically in my high school, we have several like academies. So during my freshman year, I was a part of the math team for 3 years, and I worked as an editor for their math magazine called Math Thesis. So every year we make a math magazine, and I was in charge of like editing the articles and putting it all together. And sophomore year, I joined the Computer Science Academy, which I thought was really fun. And yeah, and then the summer programs that Joseph mentioned, the Hofstra Medical Scholars Pipeline Program and LIDA, those are also really good extracurriculars. Just remember, you don't only have to do stuff outside of school during the school year. Summer is actually a really good time to take advantage of opportunities like that. And it can really like help you in your college application. And I would say that on your college application, you really want to make the activities you do pop by including like important numbers or like what was your leadership role in it, I would say. So yeah, that's just like some of the things I did.
All right, great. So I'm just gonna recap basically what she said, what Maya said, and basically prioritizing, consider your own circumstances, doing what you can do and not doing too much. Like I obviously you want to do a lot, but considering how much you could fit on your plate, and also have the chance. You also have the chance in the College Board apps to justify, like let's say if you drop something, and like a side note. Also, you can volunteer at Common Point Queens. You can also volunteer in our school, do sing, math team. You can also do like math thesis. And also, there's also a lot of other programs like LADA and Hofstra University Scholars. All right, so the next question we have is, what were some of the courses that you took in high school and why did you decide to take them? And also, like the last thing, sorry, how do you think those courses helped you in high school, in college right now?
Yes, so my main goal in high school was to just like really take classes that challenged me and classes that I were interested in. And I would say that the classes that I took in high school were very well-rounded. So just to start off with like math team and computer science, I took those classes for 3 years. For computer science, I took Python. Then in the next year, I took C++, and then Java. I also took classes in foreign language. And aside from like the regular classes, I also wanted to make sure I took as many APs as I could. So I ended up taking 10 APs in total, I believe. I took 2 my sophomore year, 4 my junior year, and 4 my senior year. Unfortunately, there were no APs offered freshman year, but to make a point about that, it really depends on your school. So it doesn't even matter if you took 5 APs, let's say at a school that only offered 7, because that would show the colleges that you really took advantage of the resources you were offered in high school. And just to go into like more of like the AP classes I took, I was really interested in STEM. So I took AP Sciences and Physics, Chemistry, Biology. I did AP Math and basic calculus, statistics, microeconomics, and Java. For AP History, I did Global and US, and I also took English History. English Language and Composition. But I would say that my classes were very balanced. And that's like the main thing that colleges want, but you also do want to show that you are taking classes that you are interested in majoring in the college, because that really matters. So yeah, those are just a few of the courses I took.
Wow, that was definitely really great. Yeah, so definitely like going back to that theory of, how much you can handle, and definitely, doing as much as you can. All right. So the next question is, which APs did you take? I mean, you kind of answered in the previous question, but like you can also talk about your SAT or ACT, like what are you getting those tests? How many times you take them, and how did you prep for them?
Yeah, so although I did mention like the APs that I took in the previous question, I do want to like go into the scores and just talk about that a little bit. And then I'll go into the SAT and ACT. So I don't remember all my scores on the AP, but I can tell you my most recent scores from senior year. I had a 5 on BC Calc, a 4 on computer science, a 4 on biology, 5 on AP Java, and what was the other one? Microeconomics, I got a 5. So yeah, I mostly scored 4s and 5s, and I did score some 3s in my previous years, but I feel like that's not something you really want to stress, because let's say you do take an AP class and you think it's hard, as long as you stick through it, that will show colleges that you really put in the effort. And I feel like it's really important if a college asks you or recommends that you show all your scores, that you do it. Unless if your score is a 2 or 1, you shouldn't really show it. But yeah, I made sure to get really high scores on my math and science classes, and I feel like that really helped me to get into the engineering school at Princeton. Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, you want to get higher scores on the colleges, on the courses that you want to major in college. And yeah, it's also best to include your AP scores if it's 3 or above. Yeah, so now I'm going to go to the SAT. So for the PSAT, I got 1400, and I did some online prep before I took my PSAT. Yeah, and that was the only prep that I did. And then on my first SAT, I got a 1480 and for my SAT, I didn't pay for any tutoring or anything like that. I mostly used Khan Academy, and I would recommend using the College Board SAT book. And I would just say, just like practicing grammar and structure and mathematics, I feel like you'll be good on the SAT. Yeah, so because I did so well on the SAT, my college counselor was telling me that I shouldn't take the SAT again, but I didn't listen, and I took it again, and I ended up having a slightly lower score. So I feel like I should have listened to my counselor for that advice. Because some colleges, they actually ask you to show all your SAT scores. So that's why if you get a really good score in the first test, you shouldn't take it again. I think the max amount of times you should take it would be like 3 times. So yeah, and also I feel like SAT scores are really not as important as students stress it to be, especially because of the pandemic that we're in right now. Some colleges are going test optional, and most colleges do a holistic review of your application. So my advice would be to just do your best on the test, but remember it's not the only component of your application, and it's neither the most important. And also to elaborate on the SAT, I would say taking the SAT subject tests are really helpful for showing your skills in a subject you're passionate about. And I would recommend taking 2 subject tests. So for subject tests, I took math level 2 and I got an 800, and I took chemistry and I got a 770. And just another thing to elaborate about subject tests. So if you take an AP test and let's say you don't think you did as well as you wanted to, getting a really high score on the SAT subject test can kind of compensate for that, because if you get a really high subject score on whatever test, then it'll kind of it'll kind of be like the AP test kind of underestimated your skills. So I recommend doing that. For the ACT, I didn't decide to take it because the ACT, I would say it's more important depending on what college and what region you're in. So I would say more East Coast students take the SAT. So that's why I just stuck with the SAT, and I didn't want to stress myself out by taking more tests. So yeah.
All right, great. So I'm just gonna recap also basically high SAT subject tests can also compensate if you get a low AP score, and SATs and ACTs are not necessarily everything that decides whether you get into a college or not. All right, so next question is, what kind of questions were you asked in your interview and how did it go? Also, like I know that COVID happened last year in March, this year in March, sorry. So I'm not sure if you did have the chance to have the interview or anything, but if you did, how did it go? Even if it was physically or virtually, and like what were the questions and things like that?
Yeah, so during the time when the seniors for class of 2020 had interviews, I believe it was before the pandemic struck and shut down everything. So I had two interviews. One was for Yale and the other was for Princeton. My interview for Yale was in person and it took place at a Starbucks before the pandemic. And my interview for Princeton was virtual, but it was only virtual because my interviewer was not in the same state as me. So I felt like the interviews were very different and I had very different feelings about them. But some similarities I noticed that in both of my interviews, I was asked about my hobbies and interests. And when I explained them, they often ask follow-up questions. And also my interviewers were both alumni from whichever college they were interviewing me about. And they told themselves about me halfway into the interview. And I felt like from that, it was a good signal to ask them questions about their work and to also find ways to relate with them. For example, in my Princeton interview, the interviewer was an economics major and interested in learning French. And I felt like we really connected over that because I'm really interested in learning math and learning new languages. So I felt like we really connected. I felt like it kind of went worse than my Yale interview because in my Yale interview, I was really talking about all the things I did in high school. Whereas with my interview for Princeton, I was very casual, talking about things not really related to school, not so much about accomplishments and stuff like that. So I feel like the main purpose of an interview is to just add a new perspective about yourself. Because whatever you say that's already on your college application, it won't really add anything new. You want to show them about your character. You want to be yourself. And some interviewers, or I don't know if most of them or all of them, they don't even see their application. So they don't know anything about you. So you don't want to just be like throwing them with all this information about, yes, I got this award, I was in this program, blah, blah, blah. You really just want to be yourself, make a connection, and hopefully they will write something good about you in the application, and that will help you in getting into the college.
All right. So I'm just gonna recap as well. So number one, also they will ask you like a lot of follow-up questions, and just be yourself and show your character, and don't throw them a bunch of your achievements or information that's already presentable in your application. All right. So the next question is, how did you start off your essay writing process? Like preferably if you have a time frame that you use, what were the difficulties of the entire process from planning to writing, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, okay, so let's start from the beginning. Yeah, I started my writing like in the late summer before senior year, and I feel like that's a really good time to start, especially if you're not busy, because then you get to think of all your ideas and let them flow. Because even if you don't do a lot, like a big chunk of your essay writing, you'll be happy that during the fall semester, you're not juggling all these things, like juggling keeping your grades up and doing your writing. So yeah, I mostly worked on my personal statement in the summer. However, even though I did start working on the summer, I had to do a lot of revisions. I did revisions on my personal statement and my supplemental essays. So yeah, it was a really lot of work. It was really daunting to just dig deeper into yourself and find ways to make yourself unique in your writing. And I feel like the best way to overcome that is to really just find advice, do the revisions, do the revisions, and then after, you can ask your teachers, counselors, or your friends what they think about it. You can also maybe even find some online resource, schedule an appointment with someone for them to offer advice on how to fix your essay. And also, like, one of the key things you want to do in your essay is to be really descriptive, really vivid, to like show rather than tell, be more active rather than being passive. And yeah, you just, often students don't really think about what makes them unique. And that's what's the hardest part about writing. So that's why I feel like it's really good to start before school begins, so that you can really just think about yourself and find like really good things you want to mention in your writing. And another thing you have to think about with writing is that whether or not you want to apply regular decision or early decision, because I decided to apply a regular decision to all my colleges because I felt like I needed to do more work in my writing. And that's definitely okay, because the last thing you want is to apply early, submit some writing that you didn't really spend that much time on, get rejected, and then I don't know how that will factor into your regular decision, but I just didn't want to take that chance. So I gave myself the extra time that I needed. I worked on all my essays and I submitted it. And also, I would say it really matters about the number of colleges you apply to, because if you apply to too many colleges, then you can't really like give individual time to each of the colleges' supplemental essays. Like, I would say for SUNYs and CUNYs, I think the questions are very similar, but more for like the Ivy Leagues and stuff, more competitive schools, I would say their questions are very different. So that's why you can't really overwhelm yourself. I would say about 15 schools, 12 to 15 schools is a good number. But yeah, 20 to 30, I wouldn't say so. So yeah, those are some of the things I really considered in my writing process.
All right, that's great. So, just to recap as well, you can start the essay writing process in the late of summer, before you start your senior year. Just be descriptive, not show, not tell. Be active in your wording and not passive, and try to be like genuine in what makes you unique. Also, take consideration into the amount of colleges that you apply, because the more colleges that you apply, definitely the more essays that you have to write, and more time management, and the less stuff you can do with your other things. All right, so next question is, what were some of the challenges you faced in the entire college application process, in general or specific, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, just to reiterate from the other question, I feel like writing was definitely the greatest challenge, not just for the personal essay and the supplements, but also describing extracurricular activities. I would say another thing was also filling out financial forms, like the FAFSA, the CSS profile, and the IDOC. So my advice would be like to not be afraid to ask for help. Thankfully, in my high school, we have college counselors, and they actually like hosted workshops for us to go, and they would help us like fill out the form. And also, maybe you can even ask a family member for help. People who maybe already applied to college would be very helpful. And I would also just say another thing that I mentioned previously would be trying to balance the college application process with maintaining high grades, because people often think like junior year is like the most important year. That's when you really have to keep your grades up. That's true, but also in addition, your grades in your senior year are very important, because some colleges, they do ask you for your grades senior year. So if you don't do that well, like they might not accept you. So I feel like you really need to dedicate, I feel like you need to dedicate enough time to both of those things and just really prioritize your time management. And it's probably like a really stressful time. So just being able to talk to people if you need help, tell people what you're feeling, all of those things are very important. Also, like I mentioned before, try to start everything early. Start your writing early. start the FAFSA early, start the CSS profile, or start the iDoc early. Everything, the earlier you start it, the less stressed out you'll be because you know you're going to be busy in the fall. And yeah, just keeping up with all your extracurricular activities is important as well. And also deciding if you want to do early or regular is an important decision. And I would say you should try to like consult someone about that. I'm very lucky because I applied to certain programs and I was able to get assistance in this. And so yeah, LEADA is also a very great resource. Also, just talking to guidance counselors at your school, stuff like that. So yeah, from what I remember, those were like the greatest difficulties I had.
All right, that's wonderful. So, definitely starting early and not, like waiting till the last minute is very helpful. And also like the FAFSA, personal essays, CSS, and iDoc, could potentially, if you start early, it's better. Okay, great. So, and yeah, don't get senioritis in senior year. All right, so question 8 is, what was your reaction when you saw your acceptance letter? So this is kind of like an open-ended question, but it's just like to kind of like take a break away from those like purely academic questions. But like, a lot of, there's a lot of people on YouTube videos, like they do, like they have some sort of tradition where someone goes to college, they have to like, I don't know, like prank their family or something, or like have some way of checking their their acceptance. What was your reaction when you did it, and like, did you have a certain like procedure that you were checking it in or something like that?
Yeah, so I know like, yeah, some of my friends, they did do like YouTube videos to like show their reaction to opening acceptance letters, but I feel like I just didn't have the guts to do that. Like if I was rejected, I wouldn't want to have a video of that. So I just went right in, just opened them all. And yeah, when I saw that I got into Princeton, I was filled with joy. I quickly told my family that I got into Princeton, and I felt a huge sense of accomplishment. And it's not even just getting into the college, it's just like all of that hard work that I put into the application really showed. And these colleges recognize all the hard work I put. So yeah, that was my main reaction. Yeah, it was kind of funny that when I opened the acceptance letter, I just saw a huge tiger, but I couldn't see whether or not I got in, so I had to scroll down a bit. And then I saw that I got in, so it was kind of fun.
Nice. All right. So question 9 is, what advice would you give to a senior applying to Princeton right now? And like obviously in consideration with like, I think early decision already passed, right? I'm pretty sure it did. So it's like right now it's just regular. So what advice would you give to a senior applying to Princeton right now?
Yeah, I feel like yeah, you should definitely pay attention to your personal statement as well as the supplemental essays. Be yourself during the interviews. Specifically to Princeton, think about what you want to convey to Princeton about yourself. Also, if you're like considering doing engineering, there's actually like an extra supplemental essay you'll have to do. And also you need to make sure to explain anything that wasn't mentioned throughout the Common App, either through your interview or through the additional section where you can just explain whatever you want. So yeah, I feel like those things are really important. And just because of the pandemic right now, I feel like it's really important to like prioritize your mental health. Just don't be so hard on yourself. I'm not sure how different the application process is now. I know that a lot of colleges are going test optional, which is a good thing. It takes less stress on yourself. And also, yeah, I would just say just really make yourself shine in the application. There's something very unique about you. You just have to find the right ways to say it, and it'll really make a difference in your writing, how you say things. And yeah, I would say this advice is applicable to all colleges, because when I was applying to Princeton, I didn't really have like any specific goals in particular to Princeton. I was just putting in all my effort into all of my applications. So yeah.
All right. So someone put a question in the chat. So we'll basically ask that question when we reach 3:45, which is the Q&A session. So just just keep tight, and we'll definitely ask your question away when the time comes. All right. So just to cover up everything, your essay is definitely knowing what to write and being timely with the application dates is very important. So the second question is kind of like a follow-up to the previous question, but it's for juniors. So juniors who are trying to apply to Princeton, obviously with with SATs and everything.
Yeah, so juniors, definitely maintain your grades because junior is the most important year. And if you're planning on doing engineering at Princeton, make sure you involve yourself in STEM activities, classes, or APs. Same thing that goes for, what is it called? The AB degree is just, if you like humanities, make sure you do activities related to humanities, just be involved in whatever you want to pursue. Also, it's really important to pursue leadership roles. So for example, National Honor Society, you can maybe try to get a leadership role in that, or other similar programs or activities. I feel like just being a leader in one program, even if it's just one, it's really good for your application. Also, connecting with your teachers because their recommendation will be very important. I feel like you don't want to be that student that's really distant from your teacher, then you ask for a recommendation and they kind of write the same generic thing they write about other students. You really want to show who you are as a student to the teacher so that when they write their recommendation about you, they can validate everything that you're saying about yourself in your application. And yeah, I know I said this a lot of the time, but think of the ways in which you're unique and write it down, because the more you think generally, when you see those specific questions, you'll be able to apply what you wrote down.
All right. Yeah, that's great. So I think this other question is basically a follow-up as well, but it's for a freshman or sophomore. So obviously 2 years away from college apps, but for those high achievers out there who still want to, planning to apply for Princeton.
Yeah, I would say for freshmen and sophomores, I would say what's really important is to get involved in extracurricular activities, make the effort to commit to them. And if you realize you really don't like it, or there are certain circumstances, it is okay to drop them. And also focus on making really good connections with your professors. I know some, as I said before, for juniors to do that as well. But I feel like if you just get into the habit of doing that in the beginning of high school, you don't really see it as a chore or a job. You'll see it as something you enjoy. And I feel like connecting with professors is really valuable for your education as well. So just kind of building good habits freshman year. Freshman year is the best time to explore. So find out about what your high school has to offer. Find out about what APs they have or what APs they don't have. Ask about a certain class you're thinking of taking. Talk to your guidance counselor about things you're considering doing, and they'll be very helpful. Also, yeah, prioritizing what resources your high school offers and taking advantage of it is really important. So yeah, I would say freshman year, it's a really good time to do exploring, to get involved in things, but don't really see it as a make or break thing. There's really no pressure freshman or sophomore year. Just make sure that as you go from each year to the next, you're steadily improving in your grades or in your involvement. Just create that good momentum for your application. So yeah, freshman year, yeah, just explore. Your mental health is very important. Make friends and just enjoy high school.
All right, great. So we have around 3 minutes left, so we'll just do one more question, and we'll start with the Q&A, and if there's no Q&As at one point, we'll go back to one of these questions and finish up the rest of them. All right, so the next question is, what is your typical day schedule now in remote learning at Princeton? Obviously, classes in college are very demanding, and how do you kind of like manage your time, things like that? And how do you think we could, as high school students, kind of like start doing that right now?
Yeah, so at Princeton, I'm at home, unfortunately. I'm all my classes are online. Although it's online, it's still very hard. Princeton is an Ivy League, it's very competitive. Um, yeah, and Princeton, although it is online, they still offer a lot of resources. There's plenty of Zoom meetings you can join, and it's just really about you and if you want to take advantage of that or not. Um, yeah, I'm currently taking 4 classes for engineering, my engineering prerequisites. I'm taking multivariable calculus, I'm taking chemistry, physics, and I'm taking a writing seminar. And I feel like if you are going to do STEM in college, like it's good to have that balance of humanities, foreign language, something like that to just balance out things. I didn't get the second part of your question, Joseph. Was there anything more that I need to answer?
Oh, it was about time management. Like, how do you manage your time? And like, how do you think we could start, like, as high schools, get that practice going?
Yeah. It's if you want to apply to Princeton and you want to attend Princeton, it's very important to have time management because Princeton has a shorter semester than other colleges. They're only 12 weeks long. It's very fast paced. So I feel like time management is extremely important. One of the things that I facilitate time management is that I have a dry erase calendar. I like to just scribble stuff that I have to do. I like to write stuff down in a document that I have to do. Just keeping yourself very organized so that you make sure you don't forget anything. And there are plenty of apps, plenty of ways to be organized. And if you are having trouble with it, it's at the end of the day, you can always just reach out to someone. Someone will help you, teacher, counselor, you call it.
All right, great. So right now is 3:45, and we will move officially onto our Q&A session. So we'll go by chronological order. So if you made a question in the chat, we'll ask that first. And also if you want to just unmute yourself, we do really appreciate that. And if you have a question, you want to talk it physically or ask it physically to Maya, you could just unmute yourself. Actually, after I ask the question, or after the question is asked, you just can raise your hand in the participant session, and then after that, we'll see it, and we will ask you to unmute yourself. All right, so based off order, we will have our first question from Nancy Kosla. Her question is, for the APs, you scored a 3. Did you submit those scores?
Yes, I believe I submitted it for almost every college. Some colleges required it, some didn't. But like if you say you took an AP and you don't post your score, like that's kind of, I guess, not really being transparent. Because like if you took the class and you took the test, that's like proof that you took the class. So I would advise, submitting it. If you only have like 1 3, then or one grade and you mostly have 4s and 5s, I don't think if you left it out, it would really be much of a difference. 3s just mostly show your mastery in a subject, and 4s and 5s are just more for credit.
All right, great. So our next question is from Julie Chen, and her question is, if your GPA isn't high enough, can you balance it with extracurriculars?
Yeah, I would say it really depends because depending on the school, I would say your grades are really important if you want. It really depends on the major you want to do, or if you want to pursue athletics in college or something like that, or whatever extracurricular you're doing in college. I mean, in high school and you want to do it in college, you should definitely like prioritize that. But I would say it is important to have like a balance. So yeah, I would say if it's not high enough, I don't really know what you mean by high enough. If it's, I feel like it really depends on you. What do you want as a student? Students have different goals as to what grade they want, but it's really, I would really emphasize the balance and think about what do you want to pursue in college if you want to keep up with these extracurriculars in college. And also just doing extracurriculars activities in general is really helpful for your application and showing that you are an involved student, because there are plenty of students who have really good grades, but they don't get into these colleges because they're just not involved. They're not really showing much of their character by only having their grades as a part of their application.
All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Julie. So our next question is from Maggie Yang. She asks, what programs did you apply to that helped you with the college application process?
Yeah, I would say the only two programs that I did outside of school was the Hofstra Medical Scholars Program and LIDA. So yeah, I would say doing programs or internships in the summer is really helpful. For the Hofstra program, I got to do research and I also learned a lot about the medical profession. But I feel like even if you do a program and you realize you don't like it, that's a benefit to you because that helps you figure out what you really want to pursue in college.
All right, great. So our next question is from Nancy Kosla again, and her question is, for recommendation letters, did you get both from a teacher in the same field, such as science? Do you recommend getting letters from teachers teaching in the same field or different fields? For example, one from a science teacher and one from an English teacher.
I would say the subject doesn't matter as much. I would feel like it mostly just matters on the teacher you felt like knows you the best. For me, I think one of my teachers was my AP chemistry teacher, and I think another one was my teacher from AP physics. So it just happened to be that they're both from science, but it doesn't have to be that way. It just really depends on the connections you make and who you feel, what teacher you feel can really demonstrate your abilities and your character in their recommendation.
All right, great. So our next question is from Maggie Yang, and she asks, how do you connect with teachers, especially during COVID?
Yeah, it's really hard to connect with teachers. I feel like especially for STEM, STEM is like less, you kind of like interact with the teacher less. I would say more in like my writing class, I had the most interaction with my teachers, but I feel like I could connect more with my teachers by like going to office hours and stuff like that. Like even though everything is virtual, they still offer office hours and they're always willing to talk. So I feel like COVID has definitely negatively impacted my connections with my teachers. But I think I learned how to bypass that and like tackle this issue in the future.
All right, great. So our next question is from Kelly Lamb. She asks, how did you make the how did you make the decision on what topic to write your essay on?
Yeah, so for my essay, I really had to think about myself. So basically, my essay was about learning foreign language and about my culture. It was about me learning Chinese. I talked about my culture and wanting to have this identity for myself. Yeah, I feel like that's something really specific. I think the way to know if a personal statement is really good is if no one else can write the exact same personal statement as you. So just trying to find something specific about yourself, something that you can write a good amount about and make it interesting would be ideal.
Great. So the next question is from Nancy Kosla, and she asks, did you get into any other Ivies? And if you did, how or why did you choose Princeton? And also, what major are you studying in Princeton right now?
Yeah, as in getting to other Ivies, I did get waitlisted at Columbia and Cornell, but I got rejected from Yale. Yeah, so I didn't really bother on like keeping up with the wait list for Columbia and Cornell. I was just like, I already got into Princeton, so I'm just gonna go to Princeton. But I was also still considering Macaulay Honors because it is a really good deal. They do offer like free, free tuition, resources and everything. So I thought that was also a really good choice. If you did, how wanted you to choose Princeton? Yeah, I feel like Princeton, I feel like I just already developed a connection with Princeton because I lived there. And so, although I did get waitlisted at Columbia and Cornell, I thought going to Princeton would be a better choice. One major, yes. So I am in the engineering school at Princeton. I am planning on majoring in chemical and biological engineering. I feel like that major is very diverse and versatile. There's many different careers you can do. Princeton also, they have 6 engineering majors, like for the engineering school, but they also have other engineering majors that aren't in the engineering school. So we have chemical and biological engineering, like I said, we have electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, there's computer science engineering. There's one more. Yeah, I currently can't think about it, but you can probably check out their website. So yeah, I think if you really like the sciences and you like engineering a lot, I think it would be better to do the engineering major of that subject at Princeton, because it's easier to transfer from engineering to regular than to go from regular to engineering. So that's something you want to think about if you're considering engineering at Princeton.
All right, great. So does anyone else have any questions? If not, we'll just go back to one of those questions before and finish those up. We still have around 5 minutes left. So, if you guys have any questions, just let us know or just put in the chat. All right, so I think we could do one more question from the previous, and I believe that was question 13. Sorry, which is, what skills do you think is necessary for someone to succeed at Princeton? So like, obviously time management and everything else, but what do you think is something very important? Also, like, in addition to time management.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is being able to ask for help, because at Princeton, everyone is smart, but what Princeton wants to do is that they want to challenge all of its students. So, I mean, Princeton has help where you need it. They have tutoring, they have office hours, they have student study groups. So all of that is really helpful. I think with COVID, more students have been kind of hesitant to ask for help, but that's like the best thing you can do at Princeton. Also, like pursuing resources, like connecting with your professors. If you want to do an internship, you can make appointments with people to like connect them for them to connect you to opportunities. Also having really strong priorities, because at Princeton the semester is really short. You want to make sure that you stick with all your grades, and you really want to think about how you want to spend your time at Princeton, because even though it's only my first semester, I feel like it's already going by so quickly. So I just want to make the most at Princeton. And yeah, I feel like also another thing, making short-term goals that will lead to long-term success. So you don't really want to think about the long-term at Princeton. You mostly want to just really focus on getting through like the semester and stuff like that, because you have advisors, you have all these people that will help you along the way. So you just want to keep doing your best. Don't lose that momentum you built. And it's very hard. It's very hard to catch up at Princeton if you were slacking. So always stay on track, I would say.
All right, great. So it is 3:57, so we have around 3 minutes left. We'll give it like a 20-second wait time. If anyone's having questions, you can just raise your hand in the participant section, and you can unmute yourself, or you can just pin the chat. And if not, we will end it here. All right, so I think everyone basically had their questions asked. So I do really want to take this time, thank you guys for attending. Also, thank you, special thanks to Maya for making your time available. I know, like in college, everything is really busy. Time schedules are packed, but making this time available for us today was very appreciative, and we do appreciate just coming over, giving advice that you can. And in fact, most of the attendees here are from Francis Lewis, so your experience was definitely very applicable and related to them. So if you guys have any questions, you can always contact us at teachchildrenSTEM@gmail.com, or you can just go on our website and just click the contact page, and we can forward those questions to Maya if you do have any in the future. And just follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that basically helps us support us and basically do what we do, but at a greater level. So if not, this recording may or may not be posted at this moment, but we will definitely give you guys an email with where you can find the recording if you do want to rewatch it. But yep, so if you guys have no questions, that's basically it. Or Maya, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening. I know it was probably a lot of me babbling and going on. So yeah, I want to say thank you. I really hope that I was able to give you guys some really helpful advice. I mean, I would be open to any more questions you had. If you want, you can send Joseph a message or send some email to the website, and I'll be happy to answer more questions. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, great. So we'll end it here. And if you have any questions, you can also like stay behind. I think we might have like time for 1 to 2 minutes. But yeah, so you guys can go.